Alright, so here we are at the next part, and you're going to see how amazingly simple it is to make some stems and some leaves. I'm going to use Shift plus A. Oh, again, remember my cursor is centered because I want everything to come in centered. So Shift plus A, mesh, cylinder. Now the cylinder doesn't need to have ends on it. I don't want to move it up just yet. If I move it up, I lose all of the little choices here in my Add a Cylinder Operators panel. I want to do two things. One, I don't want any ends on it. So if I go to Cap Fill Type, it says N-gon because this is an N-gon. I can click on it and I can choose nothing. Now it's empty on the bottom and on the top. See? We also do not need to have this many faces going around to make this a circle shape. You might think we need that many when it's this big, but when we make it so much more narrower, these become less important to have so many of them. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to scroll down until I get to about 5. Now 4 is a square, and actually in some instances, if you have a really good texture, that works just fine. But let's just add, actually, you know what? Let's add 6 to it. And again, I'll tell you why I'm choosing 6 later on. But it does have to do with the fact that this edge and this edge are perfect on the x-axis, okay? Remember, when we're working in Blender, we like a lot of things to line up for us. It just makes things easier to build. After they're built, we can then move them around. So I'm going to scale this down. And just like I did on that edge loop, remember I used the Shift Z so it didn't get shorter as it moved into the middle. I'm going to make this move into the middle, get more narrow, but not change the Z size. So S, Shift plus Z, and I can make that thinner. And you see, the thinner it gets, it still looks very round, even at this close-up distance. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I think I'll leave it right where it is for now. We are not stuck with this size. We can make it bigger or smaller as we go along. But this is a stem, and most stems, they do get more and more narrow as they go towards the top. The bottom is thicker because it's in the nutrients and everything. So I'm going to put this in edit mode and deselect everything. Again, to go into edit mode, I'm just hitting my tab key. I'm going to use Control plus R, and you'll see right in the center here, I'm getting an edge loop, a pink one, and I will just left click to confirm one loop, right click to center it. I can then take this loop and I can move it up or down the cylinder as I want to, or the stem. I'm going to put it right back around the middle, and I'm just gonna bend it a little bit. Not all, and I'll do another one here. Not all stems are perfectly straight, but not only that, I want to have the ability to change the size of this cylinder from bigger to smaller without it looking like a teepee, you know, a stretched out teepee. So I can come in this one here, which is the first one up, and I can hit S and scale it in a little bit. I can come here, hit S and scale it in a little bit more, and scale a little bit more. Now up here at the top, I'm going to add another edge loop right around here, and I'm going to scale that one in. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to use this one for like the bulb of my flower, like the base of it. So I'm going to hit E for extrude, and I'm going to scale it out and bring it up a little bit. And yeah, that'll be good for now. That's in case we want to put a kind of flower up there that has a bulb on it. Alright, so there's our stem. How easy is that, right? That's almost ridiculous. Now, for the part about these two sides right here, this one and its opposing one, looking directly along the Z or the x-axis, it's just so that, like I said, we can build things with our axes, with our X, Y's, and our Z's. So I'm going to choose this little edge right here, just that one. Do you see that? And it is the one. Oh, let's deselect. I was going to use border to deselect that, but what if I didn't get them all? You know what I mean? See how I didn't get them all? And that's because my occlude is on. So if you were to just click on one of these ones, right clicking on one thing will select it and deselect everything else. Alright, so maybe I'll show you up here where I don't have that pot in the way so much. Okay, so I have just this selected. And I'm going to hit E for extrude along the X axis. So E, X, and pull it out a little bit. And that's good. And I'm going to hit S, Y, because now we can work with our Y axis as well. I'm going to hit E, X, S, Y. E, X, whoops, E, X, S, Y. So you see how I can change that so easily using my axes. So E, X, S, and Y. E, X, I'll leave that one there. E, X again, S and Y. E, X, S and Y. There's always another way to do things like this, but this is kind of fun. And after all, we do modeling to have fun. So if I look at it from top view, it's starting to look like a leaf shape, except it's very flat. We don't really want a flat leaf. So I'm going to use Control R for an edge loop and put one right down the middle. Now, you're going to see that this doesn't really matter that it doesn't have an edge loop or an edge cut here right now, but when we start modeling and when we give our leaf a backside, that's definitely going to make a difference. I'm not going to make my edge loops right now go down here so that I can show you what's going to happen. So we'll fix it later on. I'm going to add more edge loops to this as well. So one on this side and one on that side. This edge loop here, well actually, I'm going to select all three of these. Take those three edge loops, I'm going to pull them down a little bit. Select the center one, pull that down a little bit. I'm going to take, let's take this one here, and let's pull it down. And all I'm doing is maneuvering around the edge loops to try and give my leaf a little bit of shape. So I'm going to take these three and lift them up a tiny bit. I kind of moved them in the wrong direction. Do you see that? Sorry about that. Like I said, sore throat today. I'm not liking that. Hang on, let's see what we've got here. Let me go back a little bit. Never worry about going back. That's why we have an undo. We have it for a reason. So, I think this was a good start for this leaf, like that. Right? And whoops, turn occlude off. It's going to be easier to turn occlude off and on sometimes, depending on what you're doing. Let's give this a little rotation on the y-axis and see what happens with that. And then we're going to deselect this one and maybe rotate it this a little. Rotate this back down. rotate that. Okay, we're starting to get a decent leaf shape. You can see it's starting to make a tiny bit of difference, but not much right now. Maybe we'll take this one, just lift it up a little bit. Whoops, I didn't get the whole edge loop. Okay, so we're gonna go with that. That's not such a bad shape for a leaf, is it? Let me bring this one up a little bit. I think that's just too far down. Okay, let's also go into our tools and use our smooth shading one more time. And now that looks even better. These ones here. Alright, so I think that's pretty good, don't you? Alright, we want to give this leaf a backside. We don't want it to be invisible when you see it from the underside, so we have to put solidify on it. Now if I were to take this leaf, and let's do our border select here. Whoops, I used the wrong one. I can use my grow selection again, so control plus, 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 and it selects it all the way back to the stem here. And I can go ahead and use my space bar to pull up the solidify tool. And when you start typing in a tool that you want in the spacebar search, you get choices. They pop up along here. So if you just click this one, you'll see it's instantly solidified. I've now got a back side or a bottom side to it, but it's really thick. For something like this, you just want to come over here and you can adjust the thickness by clicking the down arrow. And I think that 1 does pretty good. 0.001. Alright, so there we go. Now if I go into tab, now I have a bottom and a top of a leaf. It's getting there. Looks kind of natural too, doesn't it? And so what we would do is we would go ahead and we would make a few leaves wherever we wanted them. You're not stuck having a leaf right here, you know, wherever you're at. As a matter of fact, what you can do if you get a leaf that you really like, go ahead and I hit Control plus so that I had the whole leaf selected. You can see on the top and the bottom. Oh no, it's not all selected. Okay, now it's all selected. I can take Control or Shift plus D and it duplicates that leaf. And I can right click to snap it back where it came from. Now I can rotate it on the Z axis by 180 degrees and move it over, or I can slide it up here and move it over a little bit, get it right where I want it, and there, now I've got 2 leaves done. You will want to take this, one second, you will want to take this and make sure that it fits into the leaves, the stem a little bit, so I have to move it over and push it in. Now, it's not so bad, you know what I mean? Nobody's really going to tell that it's on the outsides of those 2 edge loops, whereas they were perfectly lined up on the bottom ones. It doesn't matter. But this is going up the stem a little bit, and usually these are a little bit smaller. So what if we were to scale it down a little bit on the Y and X axis? So again, scale, Shift Z, and scale it a little bit. And now we have a leaf that's a little bit smaller, and it seems to make a little more sense, you know, as you get to the top of the plant. Your leaves get a little smaller. You can Shift plus D to duplicate this, right click, snap it back where it was, and pull it all the way down to the bottom or close to the bottom. and now you see it's a little small for this area. So um, S, Shift Z, and scale it up a bit. And actually you can scale the bottom ones up, as much as you want, like that. And if it's too big, but you still want that nice big leafy leaf there, all you really need to do is to grab these edges right here, the 4 different vertices, and just scale them in on the y-axis, like that. And now you have a bigger leafy leaf, but it still fits in the stem nicely. Alright, now the thing about this is we do not want to make these duplicates yet. What we want to do is we want to unwrap the first leaf. When we unwrap the first leaf and we then make a duplicate of it, the duplicates also have the unwrapping. So we want to just go ahead and make sure that we unwrap this before we do these duplicates or any other ones. When it comes to unwrapping, I want you to see something. We're going to put an edge right here all the way around the entire leaf. And I'll explain why later, but before I do that, do you see this discoloration here? That's actually because this face doesn't bend like it should. It's actually got no edge here to bring this portion downward, so you get these weird shadows on your mesh. And so this is where you would want to have those edges in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to undo all of this. A few more undos and we should be done. Okay, so that was me selecting it all. Alright, and I'm going to use, actually I'm going to take the solidify off of it. Okay, solidifies off of it. So now I can come here and use my K for knife and left mouse click here. Pull my mouse over here and left click when that edge turns yellow. Hit E to begin a new cut. Click here, click there. E to begin a new cut. Click here, here. And you guys know this from my Blender for Beginners series. So I've got 3 cuts going down to match these 3 perfectly. I'm going to hit Enter key to confirm those. And now you can see that I don't have as much discoloration there as I did before. There we go. Much nicer. Now you can duplicate this. Another thing about this is that we can leave this attached, but if we detach it from the stem, kind of half making it its own loose part, then we can unwrap the stem and these a little more ease, I guess. So let me go ahead and just Control plus all the way down to that edge. I'm going to hit P for separate and use by selection. And now you see the whole leaf went into object mode here because it's no longer part of the stem. And only one thing can be in edit mode at a time. So since we took it off of the object in edit mode, it became an object. What I'm going to do here is I don't want these vertices here. They are just kind of messy. So anytime you have a loose vertice or an extra vertice somewhere, you can select it, hit delete. Do not choose vertices. We want to just dissolve it. We want it to kind of melt away. If you got rid of it, it would erase the faces that edges that are touching it. So there we go. So far so good. Now, remember when we marked the seam? Let's come up the center of this thing by alt-right clicking the stem, hit Control E, and mark seam. I'm going to use A for all. I'm going to use U and choose Unwrap because, again, it's the only one that takes notice of the seams we've marked. And Do you see how kind of crazy that is? That is not what we want. So let's find out, why is that not what we want? Why is that not what we're expecting? Angle base did a little bit different, but do you see up here I have this warning? Let me get it again for you. It says that object has non-uniform scale, and the unwrapping might not turn out so good, right? Well, that's because we made such a big difference in the size that it was when we brought it in and the size that it is now, that it doesn't really have what it says, anything uniform. So I'm going to go into object mode. I'm going to use Control plus A, and that brings up my apply menu. And from here I can apply the rotation scale, and what this does is it tells Blender, forget what default size it was, the full size cylinder we brought in, forget that that's how big it was. I want you to pretend that this is how big it was. You can even use just scale. This is how big it was when I brought it in. Just pretend that that's the size it was. So now when you go to U for unwrap, you don't get that warning up there, and you get something that turns out much better, something much easier to work with. So again, I'm going to Alt right click, W, and align on the X. And I'm just going to do this all the way across real quick. It's fast and it's simple. I will come to the bottom and do it on the Y. These ones you do not have to do. Do not have to be so crazy to get all of these ones done. But I guess I'm being crazy and I'm going to do them anyways. And this one, and then, oh, I did, I was staring at that. There we go. So this, of course, up here is this top section, and there's the whole stem. So now this is unwrapped. Let's go to the leaf real quick. Now, I could just go in here and I could do select all and unwrap it, but I don't have the bottom on it yet. So let's go to solidify. Again, I press the space bar, and because I made the thickness 0.001 the first time, it remained that way using it again. Now if I select all of this and I go here and I use, let's say, U and project from view like I did on the dirt in the bottom of the pottery, I get a pretty nice unwrapping. The problem with this one is that this edge going all the way across the outline is actually two edges. You can see that there, okay? And it's not a very good thing to unwrap. Up here, the only reason I can even see a little bit of a difference is because we're at an angle. If I go to 7 view and I do U and project from view, actually it didn't turn out too bad. I didn't turn out too bad. I guess it's because we scaled it up and down a little bit and gave it some little curvy angles. But what you can do is I like to make Control R for an edge loop here, Control E to mark that seam, select it all, U, and unwrap. And now I have two separate pieces here. They're not the exact same one. It's the exact same one, but we have the top and the bottom. And with having the top and the bottom, we're able to, let me see if I can show you which one is which. If I just go like this, it's selecting it all the way through. Come on. They're so close, they're going all the way underneath there too, because it's got the perfect edge loop here. Anyhow, so here's two of them selected, and here's one on the bottom. So this is the top, bottom of the leaf. No, this is the top of the leaf, and this is the bottom. So you can mark that on your in your graphics program if you want. Let's scale it down a little bit, and we're gonna grab it, and we're just gonna put it over here to the side. I'm gonna grab just this one and move it down a little bit. The reason that you can do this now is because let's say you have a really pretty leaf here. The veins on the top are going to look different than the veining on the bottom, first of all. But what if you wanted to draw a little drop of dew, or what if you wanted to draw a little ladybug on your texture or something? It's going to look kind of silly if you have it on the top and the bottom. So this way, one texture works to cover both top and bottom, but you can still have different detail on each side. And so I'm going to take this, and we don't need this open right now. Not really. When I take this leaf here, and I duplicate it just like I did before, and rotate it on the Z by 180, you can see that nothing in this window has changed. But that's because the UVs for this one are laying directly on top of this one. So if I come here and I move this, you see there's a UV underneath still. If I hit L and grab it, it's not doing it for L. I wonder why. Oh, you know why? Because this isn't selected as well. So there we go. If I hit L now and I grab it, you see? It's laying directly on it perfectly. They're lined up. You can't get them lined up any better. And so now these textures, these leaves will be textured exactly the same, which is a good thing. Alright, so I can take this and duplicate it again. I can move it here. And I can even like turn this one now on Z by 90 degrees. Or let's say something like that instead. So it's not completely whatever. And I'm going to take both of these. Well, you know what? Before I turn them, this is where, like I said, this is a good part where you can line them up on the X and the Y axis a lot better. So L, G, and X. Move that in. Click this one. And X. And maybe I want to take this and move it down a little bit. You can even go ahead and you can still shape these differently. You can come in here and bend them around and it's not going to mess up any of that down there. So L and L and what? I didn't deselect that one. Shift D, duplicate, bring it down, scale it up. I'm just grabbing it, moving over. And just like I was showing you before, you know, about changing the size of these, you can, making this bigger, smaller, whatever. You can just go ahead and start adjusting them all you want. Alright, so I'm going to leave the material making for this part alone for now until we get to the flower part on the top. So now I want you to make a stem with some leaves on it. You don't need to make them exactly like this. They don't have to be set up, you know, facing this way, only while you're modeling it. You know, after you model it, you can go ahead and take this one and rotate it and move it over here if you wanted to. And you can even do whatever you want to do with them. Anyway, so that's the stems and the leaves and unwrapping them and getting them ready for the next step. Remember to share, subscribe, and all that other stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.